Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second installment of Ask the Advisor. My name is Steve, and I'm one of the safety advisors with the SCSA. Maybe we'll start with what to do when you can't social distance. Tina, would you care to comment on this?
All right, so when it comes to social distancing and when you can't social distance, there are other ways to ensure the safety of everyone. So just making sure you guys are trying your best at all times. If you can't self-monitoring of personal health or supervision by infection prevention and control or occupation health and safety staff in the workplace shall be applied. Also, you could alter or postpone projects so that different trades are on sites at different times. Make sure if you are in close proximities to frequently wash your hands as often and practice good respiratory hygiene. Limit business-related visitors in your workplace to essential services. If they are required to run your business, this may include tradespeople, pest control or compliance officers. Schedule visits when possible to eliminate the need for people to gather in reception room areas. And just use other means of communication, so either phone calls, video chat, use Zoom if possible and when possible.
Great. Joanne, would you like to maybe talk a bit about the ride sharing?
Sure, I can do that. Just going over the ride sharing a little bit. The information we have here is operations may need to be altered or postponed to maintain distancing when it's not possible, i.e. for safety or transportation situations. We do have here that staff should wash their hands, maintain good hygiene, and practice their self-testing to make sure that you're in good health. So we do have best practices as well. We have a testing quiz, health quiz, as well as on our website. Best practices obviously would be whenever possible, don't use ride sharing if possible. You want to keep in separate vehicles as much as possible. When it's not possible, there's also encouraging limiting one person to the back, one to the front. Best practices obviously would be to avoid close proximity, again, trying to promote that social distancing.
Great. So if I were to just summarize this a little bit, it would be that obviously we're dropping back a little bit from what we were talking about before in regards to nobody in the same vehicle, but at the same time, the ride sharing, that sort of thing is try to think of it as your last resort. You know, if you can take 2 different vehicles to the job site or however many it takes, like these are still what we should be working to maintain, is that social distancing as much as possible, and really to think hard on is it needed to be in the same vehicle, or just is that the easiest sort of thing. So all right, in regards to, does anybody else want to maybe speak a little more on that? Okay, so we do have a question from online here. So when you're talking about ride sharing, is that Uber, or are you talking about carpooling? Somebody want to jump in?
Yeah, I can go further on that. On that document that we did share, it does go more into detail with Uber and taxi and some general practices. However, for transportation, just with your work group, these standards would still apply. You're going to want to make sure that you're wiping down common surfaces and limiting the amount of people. So we're talking specifically work, but there is information on there as well for taxi and Uber if you want to have a look.
Great. Yeah, that's what I'd read too. So yeah, specifically being in the construction industry, we're talking about the construction industry, but yeah, that should apply to any ride sharing that you do, whether it be hopping in a taxi or an Uber or that sort of thing. Thanks, Joanne. And then that's same with social distancing. And to further to that point, people have asked about, you know, that ride sharing. Does this apply to people that have lived together, or is this strictly for just people that you work with on a day-to-day? Like, should you apply that same sort of philosophy? Would anybody like to expand?
Sure. I can further expand on that. When social distancing does apply to those that you do not live with. So if you're in the same household, you're already around each other. So yeah, a family can definitely go together. If it's a family business, you can definitely ride together. That is not the concern. It's more of spreading outside of your household and that social distancing again.
Right, because the theory would be that you're in the same house, you're sharing a lot of the same things. So we're just trying to limit exposure on outside of that to people that we haven't exposed. That's both thinking of yourself as somebody that might be carrying, or thinking of others carrying as well. Okay, great. Right now, I'm just, sorry, I'm trying to guide my way through, so patience everybody on the different channels for getting the Q&A to come through. In the meantime, one thing that we were actually talking about here, and just actually discussing on a panel previously to going live here, was masks. I know this is kind of another hot topic for do they help? What types of masks are out there and that sort of thing. You know, there's lots of different information on that. Would anybody like to talk a little bit more on wearing masks whenever you go outside?
So I'll touch on this. So the CDC right now, because there is such a shortage of the N95 and the KN95, they've been posting information on actually making your own self-cloth masks as well. You can go to the website and it gives you 3 different tutorials on making masks. They say that any precaution is better than none right now. A lot of trades have been using these bandanas, so to speak, to help with protective measures. Granted, it is the last line of defense, so we want to make sure we are keeping that social distancing as much as possible, but in the end, if you need to be in close proximities, take all precautions as possible.
Okay, great. The next question that's coming up here is, if I'm going to work, am I supposed to wear gloves and a mask to protect myself and others? Who would like to jump in on that one?
I can speak to that a little bit. Just to expand on Tina's point, the N95 mask is the medical grade mask that is being reserved for healthcare workers right now. It's near impossible to find them. We have tried every resource and everything is being set aside for healthcare workers. So they are looking, several suppliers are looking at bringing in a KN95 mask, which is a mask produced in China. And it does not meet NIOSH standards. However, it is an approved standard. So those will be acceptable on site when they become available. So check with the suppliers if they're bringing those in and if you can get your hands on some of those. They are recommending the homemade masks if you leave the home. That is to protect others. So that's important to note. The homemade masks out of cotton and those types of materials, they will not stop transmission of coronavirus. So the point of those is to eliminate you contaminating others. If you are a carrier and aren't showing symptoms yet, that's where the risk is happening. So these masks will make sure that you aren't transmitting something unintentionally. As far as gloves on site, depending on the task that you're doing, gloves can provide more of a hazard. They can lead to a false sense of security. You think you're protected because you have gloves on. But what's important to note is in the healthcare system, when they're wearing gloves, they wear a pair of gloves, do a specific task, take those gloves off, throw them away, put a new pair of gloves on for the next task that they're doing. So if you're on site and you're just wearing one pair of gloves for the entire day, really what you're doing is carrying contamination around the whole area. So it is still advisable just to wash your hands frequently and thoroughly on site and not wear the gloves unless you absolutely have to. So instances where they would be beneficial is if you need to share tools for any reason, and washing the tools in between different users isn't possible, absolutely wear gloves for that task. You're minimizing your risk in that manner. But for regular tasks on the job site, washing your hands is the preferred method.
Great. No, that's that thoroughly answers that. So basically, yes, gloves, masks, they definitely work. But always think of PPE as your last line of defense. If you can do everything else, don't share tools, don't or keep your social distancing, I should say, not don't. If you do those things, you're you put yourself in a position where that mask and the gloves aren't as necessary, but every PPE helps on top of that. Now we're going to get into some non-COVID questions, which is kind of awesome because we still are a construction agency and we still do like to talk about our regular safety. Can I still write my NCSO exam?
Hi, I can take that question. Yes, the SAS Polytech has opened up the remote proctoring. So that would mean if you qualify for that exam, you can take the NCSO exam at home on your computer if your computer meets those technical requirements, such as a camera and those types of things. So it is open again. We're very happy about that. And you can contact the SCSA through our program info box, which is SCSA program info at scsaonline.ca. Touch base with one of us to make sure you qualify before you register for the exam.
Great. So if you're just to expand on that maybe a little bit, but that would be if you're, I guess, already have all your training and stuff in place and you're down to the last bit of studying part. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then just going to a little bit further into that online training, do we know what's available a little bit yet?
Sorry, for our courses, Steve?
For our courses, what's available, and are any more courses going to be made available?
Our courses are not online, so the people that could write the exam would have to be done the SCSA courses and just be at that point where they are going to write the test.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Could I expand on that a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead,
The SCSA is, we're working on trialing getting some of our courses into an online format. They're not ready to go yet, but it's something that we're diligently working on behind the scenes right now to be able to deliver some of our courses online. So we'll provide more information as we progress through this.
Okay, great. Yeah, just as with lots of updates and stuff, just keep up. If you just check out our SCSA online, we're always updating in regards to many matters, including online training. Next, I am registered for CORE and my manual is just about ready for submission. Are you reviewing manuals and how do I get it to you?
I can help you out with that one as well. Yes, we can still review your health and safety manuals if they are ready. We do prefer at this time that you email it, again, to the SCSA program info at scsaonline.ca, and we can assign that to one of the auditors to review. They can do that electronically, and then we will also reply to you electronically, and you'd have your review afterwards that you can go ahead and make your adjustments or corrections. So we are able to do everything electronically at this point.
Okay, great. If I'm a little bit old school and I don't have my manual electronically online, is there any way for an actual safety manual to be reviewed, or is electronically our method at this time?
We do prefer the electronic for sure. You could mail it to our Regina SCSA office. We could accept mailed versions that way, but there would be a delay as far as getting that assigned to an auditor to review because we are working from home at this point.
All right, so it'd be a little bit more cumbersome, but we would definitely work in helping get that done. And again, just refer to program services and we'll help you, guide you through that. All right, I am still able to hand in proficiencies from my auditor, or am I still able to hand in proficiencies from my auditor class from December?
Sure, yeah, another programs question. Again, yes, we can take that electronically. So it could be the student would do their self-audit and then just scan that to our program info box and we can assign it to an auditor to review.
Great, that's perfect. Now we're actually, you're on board a lot here, Lori, so we're gonna dive into another one. If we are not working and are enrolled into SCORE, how does this affect my paperwork for the upcoming audit? That actually maybe would be good for Byron to answer.
Sure, yeah, I can assist with that. Can you just go through the last portion of that question again, Steve?
Okay, so we'll just go, if we're not working and we are enrolled in SCORE, how does this affect my paperwork for the upcoming audit?
Right. So with any of the scheduled audits, we are giving 90-day extensions at this time. So you can utilize that to just give you more time to create that program documentation.
Okay, so essentially speaking, there's you're down right now. You need to come up with 6 months worth of documentation. So we would, if they call in and they express kind of where they're sitting there, there's going to be a little bit of a grace period to get back on track for that 6 months sort of thing.
Right, and with that too, it'll be a case-by-case basis because there'll be existing documentation before. I would assume, you know, with a little bit of a lull right now. So there should be documentation before, might be a little bit of a lull now, and then looking at that 90-day extension and then just the scheduling of the audit just to help line that up. But again, it will be a case-by-case basis.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Because there's every stage out there. There's companies that are still actually registering right now. Some that have training, some that don't have their training, some that want to get their safety manuals in. So these are all good questions, and again, case by case. So
definitely, there's so many factors. I mean, depending on how long the program documentation or that the program has been up and running, and that documentation has been coming in. We just have to look at where the company is at in that process.
Okay, perfect. Now, next question here says, I have an auditing question. Our documentation and such will not be able to meet the frequencies and schedule established or laid out in our manual. I'm wondering if you guys have talked to anyone about how we are going to move forward with this. So I think we actually just kind of touched base on this a little bit, but maybe if you just want to expand a little bit more and relieve their.
Yeah, that's a great question too, and it depends on the company operations. If everything is just at a halt right now, and there nothing is happening in the field, understood. We can work with that and look at that specifically, or depending on if there's some work in the field, some of those frequencies, it'll be taken into consideration. Again, case by case basis, looking at size of the operation, projects, where they're at, and factored into that for sure. And again, when you're looking at a baseline audit, you're looking at that foundation of that minimum 6 to 8 months. So again, before and then after this period. And then with any recertification audit, you're looking at a 3-year window. So this time will be factored in, and looking more so at the documentation before and after.
Okay, great. So if essentially speaking, if you're in the construction industry and working at all, just document. Even if you're not up to full staff, you do have a staff that you can document and still do your hazard assessments and all that. There's still documentation that can be recorded even in this time. And if you simply don't have any work at all, then that can just be recorded as well and judged on a case by case sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Definitely. That's a good point too. Because if you're looking at that, if there's no work, there's no work. It's would be looked at and gauged accordingly. If there's still some sites active, there will be those the hazard assessments, site specific meetings, site inspections, things of that nature. So overall, the main elements of the program should be functioning, just at a little bit lower level. Okay,
perfect. Now this one here is another auditing question. It's talking about what we maybe have planned for the future, but is any sort of remote auditing on the agenda? So I guess what I'm thinking, maybe what they mean by remote there is it possible to review their documentation through like shared files on the viewer sort of thing?
Right. Excellent question. It's as of right now, we're just going with the 90-day extensions and going that route. And it's something that we are exploring.
Okay, perfect. And again, we will update as we try to stay transparent as possible. So we will keep updated with that sort of stuff. All right, next question. I have some new guys starting. Is there any online courses that you have that can help with orientation? Anybody care to jump in? I know one online course would be Scott. Is that correct? Like, we still do offer online courses in regards to orientation. Our website is full of resources in regards to toolbox talks, getting your guys good, your FLAs. Would anybody like to expand on that a little more?
I can speak to this a little bit. Yes, Scott is absolutely available, and we recommend that for everyone entering a job site, even outside of the current pandemic we're working through right now. If anyone caught the webinar that we did last week with the Regina and Saskatoon home builders, Christina Reynolds, who's with us on this call today, did a short presentation on COVID-19 in the workplace. As a result of that presentation, we're going to be adapting that into a bit of a orientation that can be rolled out to workers going onto the job site during this crisis. So we're working on that. I don't have an ETA for when it's going to be ready, but again, we'll communicate that through our social media channels and on our website when that's ready to go.
Okay, great. We'll move on to the next question. Thank you, Loy. This one here, I feel like we've answered a little bit. Our external core audit is coming up in June. In light of the coronavirus being in effect, I'm wondering, do you have something in effect if you're not able to come to sites? I think we did touch base on that. Byron has mentioned that case by case, but we are slowly, you know, every week we're looking at the companies that are coming due and giving them extensions. Now, next question, I think is a little more of just a general audit question. What is the most often thing missed on an audit?
That's a really good question. The most often thing.
Somebody wants the digs for what they got to be preparing the most for here, I think, Byron.
You know, I guess if we were to look at a baseline audit, one of the most, I'm going to go with two things there. The most common thing on a baseline audit missed would be stats and records. So going through doing your safety activity summaries, frequency severity calculation, and some general trending with that, quite frequently missed, along with occupational health committee, depending on the size of the company and structured layout kind of thing, looking at the home base one and then also the site specifics. So that would be pretty general to baseline audits. Looking at recertification audits, again, good question. I would say, again, looking at stats and records, the most common one there would be communication of the corrective action plan from the most recent audit. So to have that corrective action plan available at your company, and to have documentation to support that it's been implemented, but also to communicate that to the staff so that when we ask that question, they're aware of some of those areas of improvement from the previous audit.
Okay, great. Just going back to the your baseline with the stats and records, is there any advice for them in regards to, I guess, the best way to keep on top of those particular stats? That this would be maybe more of a advisor question for Christina or Joanne. What would you give for advice on why people should maybe keep track of this, and what the easiest way to maybe do that is?
I can speak a little bit on that and then pass it over to one of the advisors. Just looking at a creation standpoint, but most importantly, utilizing that information. So having your quarterly activity summaries. I guess start at the beginning, a system in place to organize your program documentation, so that everything is there, organized, and that you can produce the supporting documentation for your program. Looking at quarterly activity summaries. A really common question is, how often do we need to do these? Do we do these, on a monthly basis, quarterly, or even annually? And it's up to you, but what that is a report on how you're doing. It's your safety performance. It's not injury analysis. It's looking at how many safety meetings were scheduled, how many occurred, how many site inspections were scheduled, etc., and showing that you're performing to policy. So I would recommend on a monthly basis, if you do them quarterly, or I've seen it from time to time annually, you don't know until the end of that period that some areas could be underperforming. So, and then moving into frequency severity calculation, to utilize that information of where you're sitting with your frequency severity, and then doing a year-to-year trending of both of those calculations to show, if you're going up, if it's going down, exactly where it's at within your company. And then once that's all together, there's also the breakdown of bodily injuries, kind of your head to toe, and it shows you can complete that documentation. And then most importantly, and this is the closing loop on that, is analyzing it and saying, these are our trends. You know, every June we're having back injuries or hand injuries are spiking, or if there's something else within there, and looking at it saying, what's allowing this to exist, and having supporting documentation to show improvements to your program. Because that's the closing of the loop on that, of what did you do to your health and safety management system to make it stronger, to that continual improvement.
Great answer, Byron. Anybody want to expand on that from the advisor's role to help them with that?
On that often, especially with new companies, I always encourage them, again, like Byron said, to look at your program monthly and, you know, compare, did you do the orientations of your new hires? Are you performing your meetings, especially when you're first starting out and maybe just getting used to having that whole program in place? It's really important. A lot of people I found on their own have made themselves a schedule, kind of a checklist. How many inspections came in this week for sites? How many near misses compared to our investigations? Do we have trends identified there? So it's always encouraging, just, you know, reinforcing what Byron said, to start keeping track. And you can adjust your timing, but at the beginning, just start keeping track of everything. And then you can adjust accordingly to the size of your company, obviously, as well, and to identify your needs and get that feedback from those stats that you need.
Yeah, great. Documentation is a great way to keep track of where you're short and maybe where your most injuries are at, all that sort of stuff. So document, and it will help you out. We're going to go on to this seems like a really open-ended question in regards to our capabilities. So what are the capabilities of your advisors, and how can they help me now and in the future? So if we want to just maybe shorten that a little bit, I mean, we are working from home. We can't meet people in person, so there's definitely limitations to what we can do, but we still have lots of capabilities at our disposal. So maybe we could speak to what we can still do to help.
I can answer that a little bit. Right now, what we can currently do is we're still in contact with our members, whether or not they're registered in new programs. We can answer a lot of the health and safety questions, whether it be for the COVID-19 or their programs as they are. Some people are taking this time to look at their manuals and some of their documentations. A lot of times they'll share documents through email, and that way we can kind of go over, do we have severity in there? Do we have good controls? So learning opportunities. We're still reviewing manuals with them kind of before they hand them into the auditor. We're able to do that simply by sharing that file and doing a conference call or a video call like this one. So we still have a lot of capacity at this point to answer a lot of questions and work directly with companies. And the questions do vary quite a bit through the emails we get. And we do our best and sometimes ask fellow team members to help answer some of those questions. Does anybody want to expand or touch on what we can do after?
I think as far as in the future, you know, some of the stuff that we're implementing, you know, is going to stay in place. Like, you know, once you start doing a little more training remotely, that's going to be to look on the bright side of all this. You know, we're going to be able to train on a more remote scale, which means that maybe some people that couldn't get the same level of training because they're just too far away from us are now going to be able to get trained remotely. I think that's very beneficial. You know, more access to us almost on a personal level, because we can, you know, talk face to face through a computer. I think these are definitely things that we're certainly training on ourselves right now. Once I get my camera working, I will be a little more face to face. But you know, I think that's what we see in the future. But we're you know, we're still going to be getting out there and once this is all over, the face-to-faces is kind of what we're all about, is helping you through this as personal as we can. Yeah, so that's what I would believe the future to be. But we're still in this, and we're still just working through it. So, all right. Next question is, I heard Byron talking about the OHC committee. How can I get mine done? All of the OHC workers are on the job site. So I'm not sure what they necessarily mean by the OHC workers are on the job site. But just to maybe talk about the, Byron, I guess when you talked about the OHC committee earlier, that was kind of one of the shortfalls in an audit. So what, I guess, would be some good advice to help them with their OHC committee? Like where specifically would those shortfalls be? Is it simply just not having an OHC committee at this time, or they're not utilizing it the way they should be?
Right. I can touch on just a couple of points here, more from the auditing standpoint, and then just pass it over to advisory to add to it. But I guess you'd want to look at home-based operations, and again with that, I mean, if people are working from home, some of those things will be taken into consideration. But there are different means of meeting. If it's a quarterly meeting, you could look at something like video conferencing and document that for the office one. And then at a site level, there's a lot of factors in there as well, as far as the duration on site, how many people there are, etc. But hopefully to just maintain that documentation at a site level. If it's lower numbers, things like that, it's still beneficial just to keep the meetings going and filling out that site-specific documentation. So, somebody from advisory want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll add to that. So for meetings on site, right now, employers and sites are exempt from that 10-person rule for having small groups on site. So as long as you guys are keeping up your social distancing, just have it outside and spread out if possible. Or again, yeah, remote proctoring, video or conference calls would work as well.
Okay, that's great. Well, let's move on to the next question. This one's going back to core and extensions. If I can't get my audit done due to COVID and you extend my core, when I do get my new certificate, is it going to have that new date on it?
For the extensions, we do what's called an audit pending letter that would give them the extension period that they can show if they were bidding work, or if they're on platforms such as ISN Networld, they can use that. At the time when the audit does happen and that's successful, we would issue a certificate at that point with the 3-year expiry date.
And that expiry date, I think their question is it expiry from the new extension date, or are they trying to keep the same dates?
The way we've done it usually is from the time of that audit. So it would be 3 years from the date of the audit would be the
Okay,
next.
perfect. So when they get the successful pass, there's your date, there's your, now you got your years go from there for your next. Okay.
Correct.
Perfect. Now, I am worried that not recertifying my core by my extension will affect my ISN Networld standing. What can I do about this?
Yes, so we will issue the extensions. Our program service manager, Kelly, has been in touch with ISNnet, and they have explained to us that they are also doing an extension process on their end. So us giving the clients their extension, them forwarding that on to ISNet will be acceptable.
Okay, perfect. And I do believe that we actually have a little bit more of an explanation of that in our news feed, because that has been a question that's come up. There is an update from the ISNet world regarding Saskatchewan and core on our website as well. Next question, we're going back to masks here. Will a face shield trump a mask? And then in brackets they have, if I don't have access to a mask. So I guess in essence is a face shield better than nothing? Or if I don't have a mask, can I use a face shield?
I'll talk to this. So face shields will not trump a mask. When it comes to this COVID-19, research shows that it does stay in the air for quite a bit of time. So you're still exposed to be breathing in those droplets. So best case scenario, just keep your social distancing at all times if you can. Do not rely just on a face shield, because that won't protect you.
Okay. No, for sure. Yeah, that's again going back to it. It's just talking about you know, any PPE can be of benefit to some degree, but it's certainly doesn't prevent you from breathing in the droplets. They're bigger than that. So all right. Anybody else want to expand on that, or maybe offer a little bit more to reiterate on PPE? No, again, I can't stress it enough how important that PPE is your last line of defense. Again, just like what Christine said and Joanna said, and you know, it's great to have that stuff, but just to keep your social distance and not share, and then disinfect, wash your hands, that sort of thing. Those are going to be what's going to get us through this. Now, how do I contact an advisor? So we've talked about what advisors can do. We've talked about, you know, the resources that still are available. But if it's just somebody that just wants to get a hold of an advisor, we do send out our emails and stuff like that. But that's us getting through to them. But if somebody wants to call in, and there's nobody in the office right now, but they just want to speak to an advisor, what would be the recommended avenue?
So right now, all of our emails are on the website. That would probably be the first avenue to go right now. And then from there,
Hello?
we can contact you after the fact via phone call if you want.
Hey, I think we're having a few technical difficulties. So if you did not hear what Tina said, we are all available. Our email addresses are on our website at www.scsaonline.ca. You can contact any of the advisors on there, and they'll get back to you in short order.
Hi, great. So, sorry about that. I'm back. My my computer froze, and when it came back, my video is not working. So that's quite strange. I had to walk around my basement doing this, looking for Wi-Fi. Usually that doesn't happen unless I'm out hiking somewhere and lost. So I am back. I got to click onto our Q&A page. It looks like we still have quite a few questions coming in. Again, we're not going to be able to get through all these today. I see that we only have 11 minutes left, but we will, again, every Tuesday and Thursday, and we will try to address these questions. We will have our FAQ on the web page once we get that going. So I'm just going to go through here. Oh, I will go down here. Now, although it is generally multiple issues at play, how do you go about changing the culture of an organization? Where do I start? So if I were to read this question, I guess is somebody I think is really starting the safety culture in their organization. You know, and that's what it starts with is one person deciding that it's time to be safe and how to make that infectious in your company. So where would be the best way to start with this, I guess, is how I read the question.
I can go a little bit into that. Your safety culture really is going to start at the top. You need to have management and owners really taking a look and taking safety seriously and getting the right training and programs into place. And of course, as Steve said, it can ignite with anybody, but for it to be really effective, you need a supportive management. And it's really important that they take a look at their program and keeping their workers safe. And then you get the buy-in from the workers and supervisors, everybody else as well. And it sometimes doesn't happen overnight, but you got to start with something. And then it over time, it can change. And I've seen some companies work really hard towards it. And it's a completely different culture after even 6 months, just really taking it seriously.
Yeah, and that's a great point, is it doesn't happen overnight. You're going to have your ups and downs and your moments of frustration, but the bottom line is if the safety culture is the correct action to take. So even if people aren't buying in right away, they will buy. You know, your actions mean a lot. So, and once you buy in, you're going to find that others can't help but buy in. It's kind of like a smile. It becomes contagious. All right, does anybody else want to have any thoughts on that? No? Well, let's talk about advisors here. Oh,
Sorry, Steve. Sorry, I'll just weigh in a little bit, very briefly. The current situation that we're dealing with right now, with the gravity of COVID-19 on workplaces, now is a perfect time to start on building that safety culture. How you protect your workers and communicate with your workers through this time. This is a great point to jump off on building that safety culture in your company. Everyone has to be on board with the safety measures put in place right now. And everyone understands the importance of this. So this is step one. If you're working on your safety culture, right now is step one. And then when this passes, you've already set the standard of how important safety is on your site and how it takes everyone to contribute to make it successful.
oh, that's a great thing to add there, Loy. Yeah, just keep up. You know, safety is the right thing. So, all right. So now this kind of leads back to how we started this in regards to ever-changing information. But our question is, with so much info coming out and changing almost daily, where do you recommend getting your info from? Like, which sources are, should you be getting from? Because, like, I think we are all aware that almost every email you get now and every notification on your phone and computer is something to do with, and your Facebook is something to do with information on COVID. I know it's reliable.
I'll speak to this. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, there, you're back.
Okay, perfect. So when it comes to resourcing your information and finding out what is reliable sources, the SCSA is continually updating their information on COVID-19. We're constantly looking at the newest updates from Saskatchewan government Government of Canada, the Health Authority information as well. So we have those links and resources on our website for ease of access for you guys to go to when you do have questions or concerns.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it just, again, yeah, the Saskatchewan.ca, we have links to what we kind of our go-to sites as well. So when you get to SCSA online, we try to stay on top of it for you in the industry. So it's actually a good place to start for links to reputable sites as well. All right, so we're nearing the end of our time here. I know our last panel was told to stop right at 10, so we'll make sure that we're following that sort of procedure. So I'd like to maybe ask a kind of a more general question, because I know this is something that when I'm talking to our to advisors, when I'm making phone calls and stuff like that, is lots of them don't even understand what it is to be a member of the SCSA and that they even are members. So this question is asking, do advisors' time cost money? I think when you answer that, maybe just kind of delve into what it actually means to be a member of the SCSA would maybe be a good way to end this segment. Anybody care to jump in?
I'll jump in here. So for advisory services, for our members, no, our time does not cost you money. We are there to help you guys go through all the processes of programs and certifications and to help you maintain your safety program and give you the best foot forward to establish that with your company.
Okay, great. And Joanne, do you maybe want to expand by letting them know for a lot of companies out there what a member of the SCSA actually means?
You can do that. To be a member, you're a member of the Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association when you pay into the B rate code to WCB. So those are our members. So we're looking at industrial and commercial and residential construction and those trades that are actively paying into those. And that's how we decide whether, well, we don't decide, but that's how we know that you're a member, is your affiliation with the WCB when you pay into that.
Great. And you know, we might as well expand on this a little bit further. When it comes to our other services that we do offer, like our training for members, you know, like again, I was talking to members in our region that just weren't even aware of the training that we offered and what it means to be a member and the benefits of going through us for that stuff. Does anybody want to touch base on that? No? No, that's, we frozen. No. So maybe Byron, do you want to talk, like when some people ask for an audit as part of the core process, you know, as members go, you know, we just explained what that advisors are part of the policy, but what about in regards to the auditors?
For sure. Well, I mean, I can touch with training or with auditing. If you're paying into the B rate code, it's with the audit. There is no daily audit fee. It's just as far as mileage, any lodging, travel from sites, that kind of thing. But very cost effective when you're a member.
Okay, great. I'm receiving a lot of warnings that our time is up. So I think that's a great way to leave this segment, is that, yeah, you know, if you're in the construction industry, there's a really good chance that you're already a member of ours, and there's lots of great benefits that we can offer to assist you. and we're doing more and more, you know, even from our home. You can see I've changed my view behind me here so to get a little bit more reception. So we do what we can. We definitely are here to help. We're going to be here every Tuesday and Thursday to just have more segments like this. They don't run smooth, but we just want to let you know that we are here. And thanks, team. This was really good today. I felt, right? There's a couple kinks. I was pretty stressed before it started, but I definitely think you guys pulled through really well today. So I guess that's it for today. Thanks, guys.